SpongeBob is a happy, friendly, and caring friend to everyone in the Bikini Bottom. But what if I said he was a ruthless, killing machine raised by the army? And the proof in this video would prove his heavy involvement in the Bikini Bottom war and finally solve what SpongeBob's past was, which I will explain later in the video. So watch till the end. Special thanks to these comments for helping out the channel. Make sure to subscribe so we can reach 1K. I want to start off by saying SpongeBob's daily routine is consistent in every episode and movie. Let me explain it to you. SpongeBob starts off waking up to his foghorn and getting ready for work, but he always wakes up super early and yells the same thing every morning.
I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready!
And yes, I mean every single morning he shouts this. How he always gets up super hyper. Well, let's switch settings. In World War I and II, soldiers were trained to become killing, disciplined machines, trained to take orders only. How they would do that is basically shouting at them and treating them like dogs. Like who? SpongeBob. SpongeBob doesn't even take a bike to work. He literally runs with a smile on his face. And he does this every day. What does that sound like? Exactly, a dog. But now let's get to his work life at the Krusty Krab. This dude is whipping up 10,000 Krabby Patties in 3 seconds. But the most important part of his working schedule is how he handles it. He works overtime, comes in 4 hours early, and grinds on that girl with no complaint, as if he is expected to do so. There are very few moments SpongeBob has ever been mad at his job and employer, but Mr. Krabs is the one enforcing these instructions to SpongeBob, as if they have a deeper relationship together. I say this because Mr. Krabs gets SpongeBob to work overtime instead of Squidward. Not only that, but their bond goes beyond the work relationship. He literally sleeps in Mr. Krabs' bed in one of the episodes. And not to mention, SpongeBob helps Mr. Krabs outside of work. But what really submits this is the first ever episode of SpongeBob.
Permission to come aboard, Captain! Mr. Krabs, please. Permission to come aboard, Captain!
He refers to Mr. Krabs as Captain. So not only do we have SpongeBob's military-like morning routine, but we also have direct evidence that Mr. Krabs is not only his boss, but also was his commanding officer, which he literally refers himself to be. Not to mention how he has a past as a soldier in the Navy. And adding more evidence to this claim, look at the second SpongeBob movie. At this point, they are literally telling us that SpongeBob has a military background. Because this? Come on bro, come on man. Now let's look at his actions. Since Help Wanted to now, SpongeBob has a very weird run.
I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready!
See how he squares his shoulders and an over-serious expression on his face?
That's just how he runs.
Let's look at the movie Full Metal Jacket. This movie is a depiction of what the war was like and what these soldiers would go through, like this scene.
I love working for Uncle Sam.
I love working for Uncle Sam.
Lets me know just who I am.
Lets me know just who I am.
Look at how they run. A man's serious face, cold expression, and structured body movement. Comparing this run to SpongeBob's, we can see a big resemblance. It's time to show why SpongeBob never really discusses his past in the military. Well, it's because it hurts him too much. Behind that joyful sponge is something dark, and we only have a few moments of SpongeBob's shell breaking. But this is just an assumption, or is it? Let's look at the episode Fear of the Krabby Patty. Not only do we get some insane orders SpongeBob absolutely destroys, but Also a part I want to focus on.
What the flim-flam? What are you doing in here, boy? You're wasting all my food! Boy?
Oh, hey, Mr. Krabs.
Why I want to focus on this scene in particular is because SpongeBob's shrieks sound like battle cries, especially how he's swinging his spatula like a sword or a knife. But then he looks at Mr. Krabs and he turns into a Krabby Patty. This always seemed really weird to me because SpongeBob loves Krabby Patties. He said himself how damn scrumdiddlyumptious it was. So, as you can see, it doesn't add up. Well, I have an explanation for this. He wasn't just seeing a burger. He was seeing the enemy of the war, but to us, he was just seeing a harmless, giant Krabby Patty. But look at what he says. Why would he say that? Any normal person would have said something like, "Don't kill me." But no, SpongeBob was seeing something worse. The enemy he was fighting in the Bikini Bottom war was the primitive fish. Basically, this theory is about how the more evolved fish fought and won the war against the primitive fish, which is why we see things like chum in the Bikini Bottom. But anyways, I know this because the episode Feral Friends. In this episode, all the fish in the Bikini Bottom turn into primitive fish. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on what they do to each other during the episode. They literally try and eat each other. Imagine the traumatic memories of trying to survive almost soulless giant beings trying to eat you, but now they're dead and most likely turned into food, which is why we see them as nothing but Krabby Patties that want revenge for what happened to them. And what's even sadder is while SpongeBob is sleeping, he tries to cope by imagining the enemy to be friendly. And what can further push this idea of PTSD is the foghorn SpongeBob owns in the episode Broken Alarm. SpongeBob tries to replace his foghorn, but every alarm he uses doesn't work. This can be because of memories of loud alarms, which are actually mostly foghorn alarms in the military bases, especially in America. We can continue on talking about how SpongeBob is this forgotten soldier with PTSD, but what actually happened in this war? Wait, did it even happen? Well, I actually know how. And the creators of SpongeBob have already given us the answer to this mysterious scene from the Krusty Krab training video. And they even answered one of SpongeBob's most mysterious scenes in the episode Sand Castle in the Sand. This episode happened all the way in season 6, episode 21. And I believe this is being told from SpongeBob's perspective. Here's how the episode goes. It starts with SpongeBob and Patrick going to the beach. They start making sandcastles when SpongeBob goes to Patrick to help him with his sandcastle. This happens a lot in the world. Sometimes rich countries will help smaller, poorer countries, but Patrick reacts negatively to SpongeBob helping him, so Patrick destroys his sandcastle. By this point, a country would cut ties with the opposing country and even prepare defenses, which SpongeBob does. But then, what really pisses a country off, building on their border, such as a big war that happened from 1950 to 1953, being the Korean War between South Korea and North Korea. This was because of small fights and military activity happening along the 38th parallel, the dividing line between North and South Korea. Both sides believed they had the right to control the entire country, which eventually led to a full-scale war. Come on. This sounds exactly like one of the triggers to start this war between SpongeBob and Patrick, or should I say, the war that the narrator talks about in this scene.
After the war, Krabs stayed secluded in a deep depression that seemed endless.
And also, building a castle with spikes is classed as a military building because we get to see the inside of it, and it definitely looks like Patrick has weapons inside his fortress. But the other trigger that made SpongeBob wage war on Patrick is the treaty they both signed. Now, building a military base on a different country's border is ballsy, but breaking a treaty is damn suicidal. basically pulling up the Chinese middle finger. So SpongeBob rightly gets pissed and both of them start fighting. But there's something weird. Why are they using medieval cosplay? Well, let's link this back to PTSD that SpongeBob and Patrick suffers from. I'm sure this is just a way to cope with the traumatic memories they are replaying for this fight. I'll discuss more about Patrick and SpongeBob's methods of coping in the next part of this theory, but to prove that this is a real scene playing in SpongeBob's head and they actually are re-experiencing the war, just look.
Well put, General. We'll create a surprise military diversion and break through enemy lines. What say you? Yes, we shall ready ourselves immediately.
He is talking to a sand statue. This is some Mrs. Puff stuff. But now we can get to the end of this episode, or the Bikini Bottom War. SpongeBob fires his tank into Patrick, yet he shows mercy, only to be duped and almost killed. He activates a jet of his and fires at Patrick, but he fires back. SpongeBob has no choice but to pull off a suicide mission by redirecting the missiles Patrick lost. By a miracle, he hits Patrick's base, and now we can only see the catastrophic war, which explains Mr. Krabs' deep depression and his protection over SpongeBob. Now I want to explain Mr. Krabs' and SpongeBob's long and deep relationship, and we can do this by going deeper into the past of Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs has a long history in the Navy and has a strong family line of veterans and pirates, and we even got to see his old crew who respected the hell out of him in the episode Shell of a Man. Damn, we even know his nickname, Armor Abs Krabs. But how do we know Mr. Krabs even fought in this war? Well, let's look at the title of the episode, Shell of a Man. This title is a reference to a condition known and spread very commonly in World War I and any other war in general, also known as shell shock. If you've seen this meme being the 1,000-yard stare, this is basically what shell shock is. Being so damn traumatized that you just stare off into the distance and zone out.
Well, what does this have to do with the theory?
Look at this image. Compare the image with the title and meme. Proof. And leading from this, we can instantly find out what Mr. Krabs used to overcome this shell shock. It's money. Every waking moment he tries to claim it. However, this episode, we get introduced to his old crew. But something's off. These guys just came out of nowhere. But this one scene here proves everything.
I was old Armor Abs Krabs.
You were?
What do you mean?
Well, I guess you were thinner back then.
How the hell does SpongeBob know this? It's impossible for him to know if they both didn't have a deeper connection to each other before the Krusty Krab. Not only that, but look at how SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs communicate.
SpongeBob and friend, front and center!
I gotta tell you about this.
Permission to come aboard, Captain!
I've been training my whole life for the day I could join the Krusty crew, and
It's exactly like military orders. There are so many examples I can show you, and just to prove this isn't just regular talk. SpongeBob talks to everyone regularly and normally. It's only military personnel he talks to in this manner. In fact, using this example, I can give you another piece of evidence that Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob go so far back that it's when SpongeBob was a baby.
There you are, boy! The Milkshake Academy! You know, boy, milkshaking technology and know-how is advanced since you were last a cadet.
I shall do my best, sir.
Well then, I bet you thought I was lying when I said SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs have a deeper relationship. Nope, no I wasn't. If you don't know what a cadet is, it's basically a young trainee in the armed services, showing SpongeBob's connection to Mr. Krabs even at a young age. Hell, we can even use Camp Coral as one, even though I don't really count it and I don't like it. We can still use that as an example. Now let's look at why SpongeBob and Patrick are so stupid. They act like children, yet they are in their 60s. Yes, I will explain why in a bit. Don't spam comments with his driving license. Anyways, they both act like a child, even though they're at their old age. I mean, they both own houses. SpongeBob is a working man. Well, it's all due to cope, and something big they use to cope is goofy goopers, they make stupid faces, They go jellyfishing and blow bubbles. And this is normal for PTSD victims actually, especially soldiers. They lose all shame and all that's left is nothing, just guilt and regret. And a show they both resonate with is Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. They fight supervillains and bring them to justice. But I want you to look at them. Not these guys. Talking about the old Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Look at how young and strong they look. They must have been in their 20s by the show's airing. And actually, we get proof of this. Not by someone saying it or replaying the memory, but actually being able to see it. In the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy Lost Episode, in this episode, we can see SpongeBob finding a lost disc of an episode called Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, which is already proof of its old existence. And this is very frequent with time capsules from the 1900s, as in time of war it is very common for many to make these. So how could SpongeBob know where to find this episode? Well, he couldn't, unless he buried it. Okay, well what does this prove? Well, it proves how much Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy allow SpongeBob and Patrick to cope with these horrible memories of war, which is why they are so obsessed with the old version of themselves. Now, not only do I think SpongeBob is a soldier, but I think he was such a good soldier that the government had to hide him from the public. If not, more would have been killed. Because we already have seen what SpongeBob can do when he's just being silly. I mean, look at the amount of people this guy has killed. Oh, the evidence? Sandy's rocket, all of the episodes with SpongeBob driving, and the health inspector. So, SpongeBob is capable of murder and was probably the best soldier in the Bikini Bottom army, which is why the government feels the need to hide his past from the public, which is supported by Mr. Krabs being his old commanding officer. Obviously, government got SpongeBob to live near his old commanding officer to keep him in line, as SpongeBob literally does everything Mr. Krabs says. Wait, this theory isn't true? It can't be. And this is shown with this one piece of contradicting evidence. SpongeBob's driving license. SpongeBob's driving license shows he was born in 7th 14th, 1986, making him in his mid-30s. Oh well, that makes me sad, except it doesn't, because look who made it. And look who approves it. Mrs. Puff, who is already an undercover character whose name isn't even Mrs. Puff and can easily change identities, and the government who is trying to hide SpongeBob's past from the public. So to recap before we end off, SpongeBob is a master soldier who suffers from PTSD and copes by imagining everything to be bright and colorful, and the government changed SpongeBob's original identity by using Mrs. Puff's technique of making a fake ID and driving license, and also had SpongeBob's old sergeant to watch him and keep him in line, because if his past does reach the public, then there will be no containing SpongeBob. From the amount of killing he will do, and the amount of riots to find and kill him. Well, that's it. This is my longest theory yet. For you who made it to the end of the video, just know I really appreciate it. Especially these comments just helping the video and giving criticism. The last two theories were a bit weak, but to be honest, I just wanted to give you guys something. Oh yeah, please leave any suggestions for my next theory in the comments. Thanks and goodbye.